45. Brown, 45. Hot, 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 hot.
You are listening to Any Given Sunday, Australia.
Yes, hello and welcome to the Any Given Sunday Australia podcast, the number one podcast in at least 3 households, 1 studio, American Football Australia head office, NFL Australia head office, ABC studios. Worldwide, we are trending. Joining us as always in the western wing of his house, Danny at Danny Webb AGSAU. How are you, mate?
Currently battling some thunderstorms, so if you hear any rumbling in the background, that's what it is. It's definitely not the fact that I'm hungry.
Yeah, I was going to say, you'd be a hungry boy. That's exactly where it's come from.
Always hungry, mate. Always hungry. Hungry for some good football. That's what
I'm nice little spin. Nice little spin. And fresh off a plane, but still looking better than Danny and I combined. Charlie Pickering, how are you, mate?
Very well. Yeah, I'm a jet setting sort of guy. That's it. Domestic travel, well? Canberra, yeah. Pretty exotic.
It is a warm day, so I reckon you are jet sweating as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'm definitely jet sweating after I've just had that thunderstorm that, Danny, you're about to experience. Joining us on week 13, which is also Thanksgiving week. So this is a huge, especially early part of the week. We get 3 games Friday. We get a game on Saturday for those that are home and, willing to watch the Raiders try and get the job done against the Chiefs. But I love this time of year when everything starts to... We get some Tuesday games in there, we get some Wednesday games, but everything just gets thrown around a little bit. And then I reckon there's a point where with college football as well, we have like 28 days in a row of football. So I love this time of year, and I'm sure you boys too as well. We'll get back to where it all finished for week 12, which was the Harbaugh Cup. I was going with the Harbaugh Cup, but it's the Harbaugh, which I liked it. It kind of rolls off the tongue a little bit easier, and the Ravens were just too good. It was a tight contest for most of the game until I reckon halfway during the third quarter. Danny boy, the Ravens just took control and ran away with it in the end.
Yeah, so there's a few things that happened at that point in the game. One, the Chargers defense looked great to begin with, and then very quickly got figured out. And they just essentially punched King Henry through with all his might, and the Chargers just didn't really have an answer for him. But on top of that, whew, wow, wait. Why can't I think of the QB's Lamar Jackson? Wow.
Lamar Jackson, that was a big glitch. You could just see your face going, what the fuck do I want to say?
But on top of that, Lamar Jackson still managed to throw for 2 touchdowns, and he also ran for 1. But yeah, with King Henry having 140 yards, like we always said, like as soon as he's hitting above that 70 mark, the Ravens are coming away with the win. But J.K. Dobbins actually left the game in the second quarter with a knee injury, which really limited the Chargers' offense. And they just really couldn't get anything going from that. So after he was gone, the Chargers didn't really have an answer for him.
Yeah, we said, Charles, that their only real weapon outside of JK was Ladd McConkey, and he went all right. He had 90-plus yards in the air. But, yeah, Danny's right. As soon as JK was gone, they just didn't really have an answer.
Yeah, Ladd had a very good game, and it's exciting. Like, that's developing really well as a relationship that's going to be good in the future. Like, they're clearly in rhythm, and Ladd is kind of his go-to. But you have a look at the stat sheet, and it's that inability to punch it in the red zone, like to pass it into the red zone. There aren't go-to tight ends to hit. There aren't, they are lacking that. What was it? Herbert went for 200, just over 200, but no touchdowns. It never really looked like it either, like it was going to happen in the end zone. But it's interesting. Like I still feel positive about the Chargers compared to years gone by, if only because Herbert does actually look like he's got a scheme that protects him a little bit. He can throw to some targets. And when he throws the ball, like some of his passes are still just beautiful to watch. So it feels like he's not going to be killed at any given minute. He's protected. The Harbaugh experience for the Chargers is positive. But obviously Thanksgiving at the Harbaugh household, once again, is it's not a good night for Jim.
Johnny boy coming up. He's 3-0, Danny boy, against his the younger sibling. And I reckon you're right there, Charles. I reckon they're still pretty happy, the Chargers, considering it is still, you got to take the big picture. I think it's year one of that, mix, that combination. So it's only going to get better. Their defense has come from nowhere really to be a top 5 defense. I think that was their highest scoring against game. So not their greatest finished, but still plenty of positives. But it does matter, in my mind, probably puts a little bit of doubt towards the back end of the season, but they'll definitely be pushing a lot of teams like the Chiefs in the next couple of weeks, I reckon.
I got a bit of a Ravens question for you, which is
shoot,
good result for them. They'd be happy. But do you reckon that first quarter, it felt like Lamar was really struggling? It felt like they had pressure on him. I talk about this way too much, but under pressure, he does struggle. Even when he got out of the pocket, he looked confused and bewildered a few times. And they obviously got it together and they ran away with it in the second half. But do you reckon they were a bit sleepy in the first quarter and they hadn't got it together? Or was there genuine pressure from the Chargers that was making life difficult for Lamar? Like, how are you like Lamar is back in MVP contention, or is this still Lamar that's not going to get the job done in the playoffs?
I think that was more of the Chargers coming out and playing really top quality defense early to get that pressure on him. Like you've literally said it every week for the past 5 weeks. I think if you can pressure him inside the pocket, he's not as accurate as what he is when he can move around and have a bit of space. So I think that was more the Chargers, but that does kind of lead you to think playoff football is going to be a lot tighter. Yeah. You're going to have that kind of pressure, more consistently, not just the first quarter. So, Danny, I don't know what you think, but I reckon that could be a little bit of a worry, but I don't think Lamar's worried too much about it.
Well, yeah, Lamar's currently the second favourite for that little MVP trophy, which we love talking about far too early in the season. I reckon the Chargers came out and did what I expected them to do for the entire game, but they only really did it in the first quarter. So whether it was a coaching adjustment or the play calling or whatever the Ravens did, or if it was Lamar himself adjusting to that pressure, so they ended up playing better throughout the rest of the game. Whichever one it was, it worked because they managed to figure out the Chargers and actually get the job done. Like the final score was only a 1-score game, but realistically it was a 2-score game for majority of it. Justice Hill ran for like a 51-yard touchdown. And then after that, like the Chargers really couldn't do anything. They couldn't get anything going on offense, and the defense really couldn't stop the Ravens getting further down the field. So, yeah, the Chargers, it actually took them like 54 minutes between their 2 touchdowns, which you really can't do that against a team like the Ravens.
I don't think you can do that against many teams, but I reckon the biggest factor, which leads us perfectly into our second story, was Derrick Henry. He really went off in that second half, and it just shows the fact that it was 2 years, maybe a year and a half ago, Danny, we were talking with Loz Haresh saying that the running backs, the value has gone. People weren't willing to pay 10+ million for a running back anymore. It just shows the value of a good running back. The top 3 rushers this year, Barkley, Henry, and Jacobs at the Packers, all moved teams this year. So, Danny, you've got one of them. It's just shown the value that a good running back really can bring to the side.
Yeah, so I'll let you talk on Jacobs. Barkley and Henry have very clearly single-handedly changed their sides. So last year for the Eagles, they heavily relied on Swift, and it was working. They were winning games, but it wasn't like he was taking over games. And Barkley's really fit well into the Eagles' offense. Like he's having his career best year as well, now that he swapped sides. So there should be more value in running backs. There should have been more value in running backs way back when, but they just kind of seem like a lot of teams were thinking they're a plug-and-play player. Like you get one late in the draft, you don't have to pay him much. Look at how well some of these rookie running backs are doing. Like Buckley for the Bucks this week absolutely dominated as well. But that was a rookie, which you can pay him essentially nothing. But these 3 are the elites. They're the juggernauts. But hopefully they puts more value in the running back name.
Henry's a good example, but it's true of all the sides that we're talking about. If you have a look at Lamar's, his rushing touchdown that he got against the Chargers, it's the fact that like he's faking a handoff to Henry. Henry's so scary that they're spying Henry. Like they have to be prepared to stop Henry when it's close to the end zone. And it makes Lamar's ability to then run it in easier. And the same goes for, for Hurts, and it also makes Love more dangerous when he decides to run. The fact that you got to account for Jacobs while you're there, and that's really what it's opening up. I'd love to talk about the running room at the Bills, but it's a similar thing. Josh is better on his legs when the running backs are running well. It's the balance that you get. Would you say that Jacobs? It's funny. A lot of people are talking about Barkley and Henry. I think Jacobs has kind of redefined what the Packers are doing as well this year. He's changed almost the identity of that offense this year.
I think he definitely has. Like Aaron Jones, and such a hard thing for him to come in. They were talking about it during the actual game. Jones was loved, not just the team, the community. So the fact that he was coming in, he kind of had to win everyone over pretty early, and he's definitely done that with the way he's played. He's broken records for the Packers, which is incredible considering it's 100 and something years old, this franchise. So yeah, I agree. He's taken a little bit of the pressure off Love, and a lot of people were worried that Love getting paid, a younger guy getting paid, sometimes can be a little bit detrimental. They think they have to take on more and do more. Where he's been able to come in and 2 or 3 times have 20 plus rushes for the game and really take that pressure off him, which has helped us. We're 8-3, so I think it's definitely helped us going forward. But yeah, I think it's shown. If you can go out there and because you're right, Danny, everyone just thought, we'll just pick up someone. Blake Corum late in the draft, we'll plug him in there and we'll be cherry ripe. But just a quality running back is just you can't replace them. And shit, $10-15 million for a guy that could single-handedly change your team. Jalen Hurts is better. It was 2 or 3 years ago. I don't think it was Swift. Whoever you had before Swift, Hurts was dominating.
Miles Sanders?
Yes, that's it. He was the one that took you to the Super Bowl, wasn't he? So,
correct.
Having him in the team, Hurts was better, and I think Barkley has shown that by having him. It's allowed Hurts to be able to get more dangerous on his legs and use those 600-pound squatting legs that he's got.
Well, yeah, that's the thing as well. Like Barkley can be used as a blocker because he is a monster of a human being himself. And then, yeah, having that, anytime you've got a two-headed beast, that you can fake a handoff or actually give a handoff and confuse defenses. And generally they're a split-of-the-moment play as well. Like it's always play action. They're deciding that on the dime whether that's actually going to happen. Anytime you have that ability, it's going to help you win football games.
Mm. Speaking of winning football games and making it a little bit harder, Danny boy, your Eagles have copped a big blow. Jason Graham, Brandon Graham, Jason Graham played for the Saints, I reckon, just for a little bit of local people. Brandon Graham, and I think he actually played really well this game too, has come out and I don't know if he's on IR, but he's definitely done for the season, Danny boy.
Well, yeah, he's torn his tricep. So he's on IR. He's out for the season. He's done. So they've actually gone out and claimed defensive end Charles Harris from Carolina. They're talking about potentially looking internal as well. They're expecting Milton Williams to actually step up. He actually got a fair few sacks last game, and I spoke about that in the previous episode. That Jalen Carter was getting double teamed as soon as Graham went out, and then Milton Williams actually just stepped up and played quite well. Massive loss for the defense, especially the defense that's only really improved since the bye. But hopefully Vic Fangio's got enough planning to overcome this. But it is a massive hole. And not just for on the field, like for the culture that he brings to the team as well. It's gonna be tough without him, and it's probably look like he's played his last game as well.
As in retired?
As in he'll retire after this season. Yeah, they were talking that this season was always going to be his last, especially because him and Kelsey, they're always, two peas in a pod, but on opposite ends of the field. As soon as he went, Brandon was like, I've got one left in me. And now he's hurt himself, so it'd be very interesting to see if he comes back. I highly doubt it, though. And you could see in his post-game interview when he was talking, he even showed the press his tricep that was torn in half. And he was just like, this is it. This is me done. He's like, I really, really don't know if I'll be back.
Charles, as a non-Eagles man, how worried would you be?
How worried would I be? Under what circumstances? I'd like anything that makes the Eagles' path to the Super Bowl harder. I'll say that. And I don't mean to be cold about that, but I'm nervous about the Eagles. They're they've come good in a way that it's been faster. I think they've gotten an identity faster than I expected this year, particularly after the debacle last year. But as far as my tricep goes, I want to say it's all clear, and I'm ready to be called up at any stage.
If I tore my tricep, I don't think it would matter. wouldn't make a difference. Charles, I reckon this one is aimed perfectly at you. Jerry Jones has come out, and he hasn't even ruled out the fact that he might extend Mike McCarthy. I reckon there'll be a lot of Cowboys fans that'll be choking on their Weet-Bix hearing that. So what are your thoughts on the fact that he could come back?
I think Cowboys fans are by now, like they're not happy, but they are used to Jerry Jones just saying shit he should not say. Like I can't remember if it was like at the end of, after day one of the draft or whatever, he, in a press conference, or it might have been on the eve of the draft, he said the player that he wanted to draft in the draft and someone picked it. Before it got to the Cowboys, he has also at this stage, I feel like we need to ask McCarthy if he's okay because it feels like such a deeply abusive relationship. Like, do you remember he wouldn't commit to bringing him back? Like, like a few years ago, he was saying in press conferences he'd get asked directly and just not answer the question if they thought McCarthy was good enough to come back as coach. Now he's saying he hasn't rolled it out. Stop talking about shit. Just do it. It's and I know it's Jera world, and I know he's a Texas billionaire. He's going to do whatever the hell he wants, but it is such a toxic relationship between Jerry and McCarthy. That team is just it has no focus or plan or strategy. Teams can have a bad season, but if you go, well, I know what you're trying to do, or we're rebuilding we're starting at the line of scrimmage and we're going to work our way up or whatever it is, but it's just we're bringing Zeke back, where,
Back to the future.
Maybe we'll have this coach next year. I mean, what is it about McCarthy's coaching performance, not just this year, but the way that they have flamed out in the playoffs every time, the way that they are terrible at game management, but also situational football has never been present in what the Cowboys are doing. And that's their roster is problematic, but that lack of the ability to handle it under pressure, that's coaching. That comes from the top. And there's no reason for McCarthy to be there. McCarthy needs a friend to say, you've got to leave. There needs to be some safe house that he can go to and just get out of there, and we'll figure it out later. It's just not a safe place for him anymore.
Wow.
Too much?
No, I like that's why we brought you on here, mate. Danny, would you they've had a pretty successful relationship together, them with Dak, but success in season compared to the postseason is very, very different.
Yeah, of course. And the postseason where it all matters, isn't it? No one's playing just to make the playoffs unless maybe you're the Panthers this year. And that's not going to do it. But, for the Cowboys in such a big organization, Dallas is not a small football club by any means. For such a big organization, just making it to the playoffs is never enough. And then going out in the first round of the playoffs or the wildcard game, it's not what they want. It's not what they're chasing. So, but at the end of the day, it's Jerry. Jerry's going to do what he wants. If he re-signs him, no one's going to be shocked. Maybe a little bit the Dallas fan base, but are you really going to be that surprised with Jerry at the helm?
Is it one of those things where, like you said a few years ago, he wouldn't even comment on it? You're going to re-sign him, you just move on, and then he got re-signed. Now he's saying, no, I might actually bring you back. Is that more worrying?
Potentially, yeah. So you're saying the fact that he's actually talking about it, is he trying to blow smoke? Trying to blow smoke up McCarthy to be we'll keep you around, and then just actually get rid of him at the end. Who knows, man? Who knows what? Honestly,
hang on. Have we cracked the Jera code? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I think he's talking about he's going to resign, but if he says he might, it's bad for McCarthy. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I reckon he's hot. His seat is hot, but it's so weird. It could be a blue flame. It's not necessarily going to be a bad flame that it is that hot, because Jerry could come out and sign him for a $6 million or a $60 million contract. Who bloody knows? So,
isn't
like
there
you said, he loves getting. He's got a radio station that he's on all the time, and he says some absolutely wild shit on there, which, crazy.
There is a tiny thing that is worth considering. Is like, okay, let's say they don't re-sign McCarthy. You know, there are some hot candidates to take over head coaching jobs. You know, everyone wants Ben Johnson from the Lions. You know, he turned people down last year. He's not going to take a head coaching job unless it's right. You know, he's going to be very picky. And some of the other candidates out there, they've got a good enough record and they're with a team that's succeeding that they can be patient and selective. If you were going to take on your first ever head coaching job, or you were a head coach looking for a previously a head coach looking for an opportunity, why on earth would you step into Jera world? Like, he's given all of this, given the fact that, like, you could say what you like about what the team needs for recruitment, but Jera, if he likes the calves of a running back, he's going to pick him number one. Like, you know, like he's gonna be impressed by the musculature of someone, and that's it. And so if you're serious, and you know, yeah, there's only 32 head coaching jobs, and if you're an OC or a DC, you want that job, but wouldn't you think, well, I'd rather stick with this winning team that's in the playoffs, that's my walking business card.
Yeah.
It's my walking CV, rather than throw my hat in with the crazy Cowboy.
Literally the crazy Cowboy. And, like, you could go there and, you know, we're going to do this, and then he walks in the front door, like you just said, no, mate, we're running the ball this week. No, we're not. We're going to do – no, I like Zeke. His calves are amazing. We're running the ball. Yeah. So I don't know if I'd want to go into that kind of – unless you have a safe house and a person that can sit you down and be like, mate, just cop it on the chin, right. Move on. Maybe that should be written in the contract. Safe house is required. So there is a few teams. Speaking of playoffs football, Danny Boy, there's 3 teams, one in the NFC, 2 in the AFC, that can clinch playoff spots as early as this week. I've got it. Do you have it in front of you, or do you want me to run through the different scenarios?
I think the scenarios, some of them are too long.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the best scenario for each team. So the NFC side is the Lions. I think they only have... Oh, no, they have a few. Their best scenario is a Detroit win, San Fran loss or tie, Arizona loss or tie, Seattle loss or tie, and Tampa Bay loss or tie. So there's a little bit out there, but as long as they win, they're going a long way. Cardinals and Buffalo on the other side. So just those that are wondering, this isn't to claim their division. This is just to make sure that they're actually going to make the playoffs. The Chiefs can clinch with a win against Vegas and a Miami loss. So that's their best way in. Or a Denver loss and they win. So either one of those two lose and they win, they're in. Buffalo, you'll be cheering this one home, I'm sure, Charles. If they win and Miami lose. So if Miami lose, there's 2 teams that are very much... a chance of making the playoffs. So you
now, unless I'm mistaken, just to add a little bit of juice to the Miami situation, on what the kind of reading the tea leaves is as to the vibe and confidence of Miami. They're taking on the Packers.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you saw the tweet today. I think it was from the Packers organization saying that they have extra tickets available because the Miami Dolphins have not purchased the tickets allotted through the franchise. So the Miami fans aren't traveling. You know, like it's embarrassing. It's like you don't see that very often from good sides, that the fans won't travel and go to a game. But even Miami's fans are like, nah, they ain't got it. So of all the scenarios, I think that one is quite likely. And I would say, like, we've got, actually looking into that matrix, the Bills are taking on the 49ers, who's going to be quarterback. They look like they are in all sorts of trouble. Normally don't like playing someone coming off a bad loss, but if Purdy's not back, I think that's a good one. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a good one for the Bills there.
Could be Daniel Jones starting. Who bloody knows?
Man of the future. So that helps the Lions as well. Like, there's some, like everyone is interreliant, but I would say that I think the Packers can get it done against Miami in the cold. I'm pretty confident of that.
At home. I reckon that leads perfectly. We've got a few great games this week. let's lead straight into them. The first one we were talking about that I've got written down is I don't usually like talking about my Packers, but it is a juicy game. Yeah. Sorry, even I couldn't say that with a straight face. The 5 and 6 Dolphins, it's a Friday. It's I'm going to say 12 o'clock game. We're in prime time. 5 and 6 Dolphins against my 8 and 3 Packers. We are favoured by 3.5, which I think is a little bit low, but maybe snow might have something to do with that. 67% of the punters are on the Packers at $1.56. So they're all behind you, Charles. And Danny boy, we've seen in the past, Tua doesn't like it cold.
No, Tua doesn't like it cold, but he has been humming lately, and the offense is looking really strong. He's actually, since his return, he's rated second in passer rating, which is pretty crazy. So it's not really a side you want to face if some of your secondary's out, which the Packers it is, which might have something to do with this line. Also, the Dolphins are hungry because their playoff chances are still alive. They're only 1.5 games behind the Broncos for an AFC playoff spot. So losing this game puts them 2.5 games back if the Broncos don't win, So you don't really want to be in that position if you're Dolphins. But in fairness to the Packers, the running defense was absolutely elite against the struggling 49ers side. I know they had, who knows, was the quarterback at the helm, but you still had CMC out there. Anytime you got CMC out there, especially if you're a quarterback that's not normally the starter, you just feed him constantly. I think you held him to like 55 rushing yards total as well, not just CMC, like the whole 49ers. And then the other big cherry on the top, probably for the Packers side, is the first home Thanksgiving game since 2015. The boys going to bring home that cheese.
Yep, you're right. You are 100% right. Charles, can you see the Dolphins going in there and causing an upset, getting the job done?
I mean, it is possible, as Danny said, that they're playing some good passing offense at the moment, but it's a cold game in Lambeau. I think like the key is going to be on the ground, and I think their run game has been up and down, whereas particularly we've talked about him already. Josh Jacobs is doing such great work running the ball, and if the weather plays into Green Bay's hands, I think it could be one of those great slugfests which just do not favour the Dolphins at all. So all you then have to do is just get Tua off his timing a bit. If you start winning that line of scrimmage and get him holding the ball even half a second longer, the whole machine starts to fall apart. And I still think, Waddle's had a few flashes, but he has not been, that 1A, 1B of Hill and Waddle, it hasn't been clicking well. And I, could this be the game? Maybe, but I doubt that they're going to get that working in really cold weather. I don't think that's going to happen.
Just looking at the game time weather of -2 degrees.
Beautiful. Great.
I think that plays well into my Packers' hands. But you brought up a great point there, Danny, and I think especially on the AFC side, the top has really moved out, but that middle pack is so tight. That's why I've picked the Dolphins. The next game's another one. If these teams can get a W, they're right in the playoff hunt. And 2 or 3 weeks ago, when Tua was nowhere to be seen, off in some retreat trying to get his head right, everyone thought the Dolphins were done. But if they can sneak a win here the next couple of weeks, they are back right in playoff contention.
I've just got an interesting stat on Tua in the cold. So firstly, he's come out and said he's excited to kill all the narratives about him. So let's go bring it on. The next point down from that is Tua has a 0-7 record when playing in games that are 4 degrees Celsius or less.
-2.
So maybe put some money on the Packers.
Yeah. Told you that 3.5 line. I don't think they're a big Archain and that. They're good rushers, but I don't reckon they're that big ground and pound. Josh Jacobs can play that ground and pound kind of football. Feeding the ball 30 times, and he'll just keep going. And so I feel like it does play into our hands. It's always going to play well. Danny, you brought up the turf the other day. It's grass. Teams don't always wear the right cleats. They were slipping around everywhere, but you got to wear the right footwear when you go to, Green Bay is pure grass. It is used for one thing and one thing only. So they've got the grass down to a fine art. I did get to stand on it 8 years ago or something, and it looked bloody amazing, I'll tell you that. So wear your right cleats, otherwise it'll become real choppy out there and you will fall down quite a bit. So
I like that. To the Miami Dolphins, if you're listening, wear the right cleats
Nah.
for this game.
Go in there in slides. I don't give a shit. Better.
Turns out Waddle and Hill are both major listeners of this podcast, so they'll clip them on after this. They'll know now because of us, only because of us.
That's a shame. Danny boy, who are you picking?
The Dolphins, just because 0-7, surely he's due.
No,
due for one.
He's not.
What is it? Best indication of former behaviour is past behaviour.
He's due.
So you're going for the Packers, I'm presuming?
Yeah, definitely
Good boy.
Packers.
Yeah, good boy. You'll get a better paycheck this week than Danny boy will. I'm obviously going to go the Packers, and I'm going to pick them to be over 3.5 as well. I reckon we get the job done, and Josh Jacobs for another couple of touchdowns, I reckon, is the one we should be looking at. The second game, like I said, I picked this game for similar reasons. One, it is the AFC North, and it's going to be an absolute classic. I reckon there's a line of 2.5, which could be very, very, very accurate. But two, the Bengals, so it's the 8-3 Steelers at the 4-7 Bengals. The Bengals are the favourite by 2.5. They win this, they'll be 5-7, and they are, again, smack bang in that middle of possibly playoffs. And they were, 0-4, 0-5, something like that. So 51% of people actually, it's a pick'em game, really. 51% on the Bengals at $1.66. Danny boy, who's going to win this one?
Well, just to be clear, when you're saying they're right in the playoff hunt, since we've moved to the 17-game schedule, only 2 teams have made the playoffs with a 4-7 record, and that was the Jags in 22 and the Bucks in 23. And they
right in the playoff hunt.
And they both came out to become divisional. The only reason they got in the playoffs was because they were divisional winners. So you're saying for Cincy to make it and be a divisional winner, they got to outwin the Ravens and the Steelers.
I don't think they're going to be. They won't get divisional, but I do think if they can go on a bit of a run, get 5. You got to be 5-7 before you can be 6-7. So if they can get to 5-7, it checks out. Trust me. If they just got to win, and they're favourite to win here, so I think I love this game. I reckon it's going to be a classic where Joey B, who's been number 1 wide receiver. Joey B, number 1 QB, Jamar Chase, obviously the wide receiver. They just haven't been getting the job done. It hasn't been their year, but they could turn it around. Like, I can't imagine they're going to... There's every chance Jamar Chase ends up as a triple crown. Touchdowns, receptions, and yards. And they don't make playoffs, which is wild to think. Charles, surely I'm not talking dribble here.
I don't think you're talking dribble. I'm unconvinced. Anyway. Look, I'm unconvinced by the Bengals this season, and I don't think that's an outrageous thing to suggest either, because they're sitting at 4-7. But also, I don't feel that they've put it together consistently. Like, Chase has had some insanely good games and insane numbers of yards, but Burrow's been very up and down. And Burrow has looked, on occasion, despondent in a way that he hasn't before. Normally he is cool no matter what, but he has actually, on his face, looked like he's a bit shaken by what's going on. I kind of think there were times when it was the attitude and the confidence of the Bengals that would get them over the line in some close games. But this one, in the division, the Steelers are just a problem. They're just really annoying to play. And they... you have a look at the way that they played the Ravens. They don't care how maybe uninspiring the game is. They will their defense will annoy the hell out of you all day. And there hasn't been that much more going on for the Bengals other than Chase on the outside. So, I don't know. I'd be more confident about the Steelers here. And I think this long shot of yours of the Bengals making the playoffs.
They are 3 games behind. Which makes
it's
it tough.
statistically ludicrous. But, strange. It's mathematically possible, but it's statistically ludicrous too.
They're not out of it.
They're not
like I said, you got to be 5-7 before you're 6-7.
And just importantly on this, it's a very important divisional game, very important for the Steelers as well. They came off that super disappointing loss against the Browns in the Blizzard game. But anytime it's a divisional game, it's going to be close. Whether it's in Cincy or it's at Pittsburgh, it's still going to be tight. It's really going to be a tightly contested game. It's the I'm shocked that the line is that heavy towards the Bengals. Like, yes, it's only 2.5, but I agree with Charlie that they just haven't really hit the mark yet this season. And anything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong for him as well. Like, we're talking missed field goals, which would have put him in on top, some poor decision making. Like, anything that could have gone wrong has. There's a few games that they definitely should have walked away with. Like, but the Steelers coming in, I think they're going to be pushing hard for that number 1 spot.
So who are you picking?
Charlie?
Oh,
I was going with you, Danny, but that's fine.
Steelers. I'm in on the Steelers. I think the Steelers are good.
Yeah. Danny, who are you picking?
I just need some time to think. That's why I don't really know. Like, because my heart wants to say the Bengals are actually going to turn this around and it would make it a little bit more exciting. Like you said, 5-7 before 6-7. But I just think the Steelers are going to come out after that loss against the Browns and probably get the job done and almost put the nail in the coffin of the Bengals. So give me the Steelers.
All right, well, Stuffy's both. I'm going to go the Bengals. They will be 5-7, and they will blow them out too. This line's way too short. I'm thinking touchdown plus. Although I do really love the Steelers' defense, they're gonna be a real issue for a lot of teams going forward. But this will be a cracking game. Like you said, it doesn't matter if it's 5 field goals to 6. It'll be a tight affair. The last game I'm going to talk about, Danny boy, you're going to love this one. The 9-2 Eagles at the 8-4 Ravens. Again, this will have implications for number 1 seeds and seeding into the playoffs for both sides. So that's huge. A -2.5 line for the Ravens, and 59% of people are actually on the Ravens at $1.61. Danny, does that hit you right in the feels?
I reckon people are doing that because that's the home team advantage, but a lot of people don't. It's only a short bus ride away. Mm-hmm. So, if anything on the East Coast, I'd take over jumping on a plane. It's definitely going to be the battle of the running backs, isn't it, in this? Like, will King Henry get past this depleted defensive line and, with some defensive ends and changes in that position? Probably, at some point. Like, you can't really deny that. But then at the same time, we've got Barkley, who's playing the best football of his career, and an offense that's absolutely firing under Hurts at the moment against a Ravens side that is statistically bad in pass defense. And I don't know where they sit rushing defense either. I actually don't think they're necessarily that great. They're first.
Number
Ravens
1.
First. Oh, there you go. Are they last in pass defense? But
last in passing, first in rushing.
Yeah. Beautiful. So,
well, they've gone all in on something.
Yeah. But there'll be a way. I can't see this Eagles offense getting completely stopped, especially when Hurts is actually playing some of the better football he's played since his Super Bowl run. I can't see this Ravens defense stopping him. I am, ignore the line. I'm taking the Eagles for the win, 100%. And that can be my any given Sunday pick of the week. So taking them at $2.38 when we love to pick a roughie. I just really don't think the Ravens are going to have enough.
I do love a 9-2 Eagles being the outsiders, which is awesome. But Charles, do you see number 1 rushing defense, the Ravens, but I don't think they've come up against a two-headed dog like Barkley and Hurts. So I think that will play into their hands. Whether it's Barkley does have a bit of a quieter day, I don't think he's going to go for 250 this week. Whether he does a bit quieter, but I reckon that'll open up for Hurts. So I'd look at maybe Hurts, some rushing yards if you're thinking of punting, and definitely AJ Brown for a lot of yards. But
I was going to say Brown and Smith.
How is Smith? Is he still injured?
Is he? Oh, is he still
questionable? I think he's questionable. But if there's any game you bring him back for, it's going to be this one. But I just don't see it.
Don't think he's going to get back.
No.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a little more interesting. But I still do think I'm much more scared of
King Henry.
I'm much more scared of the Eagles pass game than the Ravens pass game. And if, as we say, we've got the 2 best running backs in the league going at it and 2 good run defenses, then it is going to come down to who can do it in the air. And I don't know. This season, I put my money on the Eagles. I think they're more dangerous in that regard.
I do love that it is pretty much a rushing QB and a big rushing running back on each side that are going to be going head to head. So it could be literally come down to who does it better. It might not be an incredible game. It might be, 100 yards to 50 yards, but that 100 yards is going to be able to get the job done. And I do think the Eagles have a slightly better passing game. Zay Flowers has been up and down so much that it's annoying to punt on him.
The yo-yo.
Yeah, but I think Mark Andrews has also started to come back a little bit. Last week he was huge, scored a touchdown, so that could be a factor. Dallas Goddard, whether he has a big game as well, being that second, number one tight end, but second receiver for you guys. So it's an interesting game. I reckon they're pretty well matched up, so I don't hate that 2.5 line either, Danny.
For the Ravens?
Well, just in general, being 2.5.
Yeah, it needs to be close. It needs to be close, and I think it is going to be a close game. Realistically, you got the two players that are probably number one and number two for offensive player in the year in Derrick Henry and Barkley going head to head. And I think this could potentially have a fair bit of weight in the award itself. This game, let alone the playoff implications.
Yeah,
huge game.
Absolutely.
Huge game. Go Bird.
Huge. Love it. And it's the 8:25 game on Monday, so nice, good time for you as well. You don't have to get up too early to watch it. Danny, we know you're picking your Eagles at $2.38. Charles, who are you going with?
I am going the Eagles. I think they've got a bit more versatility. Hey, little thing, if it is the two best running backs in the league up against each other, if you wanted to scheme in a way that is surprising around the Ravens' number one defense, Barkley is also good. You get him out on a screen. He was taking some silly catches down the field as well. And so to just maybe not go the straight head-to-head ground game battle, but get Barkley on the outside a little bit to mix it up, I think that could confuse things as well. Oof. And maybe blunt that Ravens running defense a little bit. So, yeah, I do think the Eagles get there.
Sounds like you're saying Barkley for rushing and receiving. I like that a lot. Huge game. I'm going to say the Ravens just purely because you've both said the Eagles. And Henry to have a big game. Even though you guys have got a pretty good rush defense, I think Brandon Graham's loss is bigger than what we're giving it. So Henry to have a big game. He didn't score last week. We normally get off on him if they don't. He'll be back. He'll score this week. But
that doesn't feel like the biggest prediction in the world, by the way.
Nah, it's not. It's not. He's probably jumped up to $1.40 from $1.30. Yeah. But I'm going to go. I don't know what the line or what it's at, but it is going to be high scoring. I think you're both going to break down the defense. It's going to be an absolute scheme fest. We're going to see players in spots that we're not expecting. So I reckon this will be an absolute score fest, and 25 plus each team. So I'd be looking at over 50. I don't know what the line is, but over 50s for this one, and I'm going to go the Ravens to get the W. So stick that up. Yeah.
Incredible that you said that. You should be a behind the scenes punting guy. The line is 50.5.
Oh, I'm not, but I did not even look at that. I love that for me. So well done. Pat myself on the back. I'm getting shorter. The amount of pats on the back I give myself.
A little extra morsel to think about with the incentive for the Eagles.
Bit of
juice. Who are sitting 9-2 atop their division. And Detroit are 10-1, and obviously sitting in the 1 seed for the NFC at the moment, and widely regarded as the best team in football. But Minnesota are breathing down their neck at 9-2. Just all I'm saying is, whereas Philly are more clear of Washington, they're safer where they are in their division.
Definitely.
A couple of wobbly games for Detroit, and all of a sudden the Eagles are looking at a 1 seed, and Detroit then might have to get on the road, down the track in playoffs. So it's starting to get to that interesting time where it's shaking out that maybe the coronation of the Lions is a little early.
I think just to finish off and to go off with a real bang, they will lose a couple games in the stretch, whether it's that we're safe now, we can kind of relax. They've got the Bears this week. Every chance the Bears come out and beat them. It's just that kind of game where, the Bears have done that to the Packers over the years where I know we're 11 in a row now, but against the Bears, but they always push them in the interdivisional games are always going to be tough. And I reckon they're on the precipice, just fucking really hanging on of a game they're going to absolutely butcher here, the Lions, I reckon, and it could be this week. So huge for the Eagles to keep that momentum going and get the job done, I reckon.
If they're calling the Lions the best team in football, the Eagles the second best?
No. I think we'll have the answer. I think we'll have the answer to that question in a couple of weeks when the Lions take on a little team called the Buffalo Bills. That's my theory. That's a game that they could drop as well.
Yes, 100%. Yep. It just feels like they're due to drop one, I think. So I'll keep betting against them.
I would say, though, the worst thing for the rest of the league is the Lions dropping a game.
Nah.
Like a nice loss
They got the Packers
to fire them up to just never lose again. Like they just need a tiny bit more motivation and then they're devastating.
Yeah. All right, boys. It's probably going a little bit longer. We're talking a lot more shit. But that was a good episode. Enjoy Thanksgiving, even though we don't do it over here. But enjoy the just chock full of games. We've got Friday games, we've got Saturday games, we've got Monday games, we've got Tuesday games. Enjoy your Sunday off because we've got a big weekend. We'll be back next week to talk all about it. Stuff it. We're going out again with a Go Pack Go, boys.
Fly Eagles Fire, number 2.